Hello and welcome to my presentation. Today I'll be talking about my observations from being an undercover OB consultant at Wendy's and Stinson & Son. First, let me introduce the two different organizations for those who are not familiar with them. Wendy's is a fast food restaurant that offers a variety of burgers and was established by founder Dave Thomas. And Stinson & Son is a business that offers all kinds of petroleum products, including gasoline, diesel, and heating fuel. And as in the name it sounds, it's Stinson & Sons, so it is a family-operated business to this day. The three OB practices that I will be using to analyze are power and politics, conflict and negotiation, and leadership. These three practices are relevant to my analysis because they have been seen in both organizations in both positive and negative forms. Power and politics. When it comes to power and politics, they can play an important role within an organization. After observing at both Wendy's and Stinson's, I found there to be abuse of power with those within power in the organizations. First, at Wendy's, there seems to be abuse of reward power. It was seen that employees who had a personal connection with the manager that issued the Employee of the Month reward are the ones that always win. It was even seen that that same employee won more than once. There seems to be an obvious connection between the manager and employees that win each month. The manager is only rewarding those of his friends rather than based on employee performance. This really discourages other employees from doing better or competing to win the award because they know they're not going to win it unless they are friends with the specific manager. This creates an inequality and it's abuse of reward power. At Stinson's, it was also observed that a manager was abusing their power. They did this by firing an employee because they personally did not like them and they felt there was a threat to their position. It was witnessed that a manager targeted and fired an employee for using a cell phone at work when the rest of the staff do the same thing every day, including the manager. The manager was recently told by higher management that they would like to hire another store manager. The employee who the current manager did not like expressed interest in applying for the new management position. A week later, the employee was fired with a weak reason. The manager used their coercive power over the other employee to have political gain as they felt threatened by this employee. Conflict and negotiation. At both Wendy's and Stinson, it was observed that they both had dealt with a lot of conflicts, but the way they handled negotiations was much different between the two organizations. A common employee conflict with management is scheduling. When an employee had a conflict with their work schedule, they would usually bring it up to their manager that did the scheduling. At Wendy's, management was very open with scheduling employees and working around employees' needs. When there was a conflict with the schedule, the manager would use problem-solving skills and come to compromises. Employees at Wendy's were also open to compromising and put their interests of others above their own. I even witnessed an employee change their schedule in order to help out a fellow coworker. At Stinson's, when it came to the same conflict of scheduling, management was not willing to problem solve and was forcing employees to resolve the issue on their own. The manager would say to employees, "Find someone to take your shift or show up." Management would even threaten by saying, "Show up, otherwise I won't put you on the schedule anymore." Management was not very cooperative in resolving the conflict. Employees felt they did not have much choice when it came to their schedule. It even came to a point where an employee quit because they were not able to resolve a conflict with scheduling. Leadership. Proper leadership is very important for an organization's success. An effective leader initiates structure, has consideration and appreciation of others, and is production-orientated. At Wendy's, leadership from an organizational perspective is missing consideration and appreciation of its store managers. They send out district managers to each store and make changes that affect store managers and staff in a negative way and do not consider how it affects them. An example is the district manager made changes to reduce the number of cloths provided to each store. This resulted in staff not having enough cloths to clean the store. From a managerial perspective, they did very well in facing the issue and decided to ration out the amount of cloths provided each day and cut the cloths in half to prevent waste. The store managers took the consideration of the staff and initiated a structure that was missing. The district manager put the burden on the store managers, and the store managers were able to use their leadership skills to find a solution. At Stinson's, effective leadership was not well demonstrated, as many managers demonstrated self-interest and did not show consideration or appreciation of their staff. This was not only from a manager perspective, but also on an organizational level. Staff felt like they had to lead themselves whenever they had any conflict and were afraid to approach managers in fear of repercussion. It was not easy for staff to communicate with their bosses, and it was not a friendly work environment because of it. As for what was done effectively and ineffectively at both organizations, at Wendy's, when conflict arose, negotiations were handled properly. Both the management and employees put their own interests aside and came up with compromises in order to resolve conflicts. Leadership on a store level, when it came to the store managers, was also very effective. When they were given a task by the district manager that challenged the entire staff at the store, the leaders were able to come up with new solutions to make everyone happy, and it really was effective. Another way leadership was effective at Wendy's was how the employees were able to openly communicate with the managers. It really created a friendly environment that everyone was on the same team, and openness to communicate with your manager is very important for effectiveness as a leader and as a whole. As for what was done ineffectively in both organizations, abuse of power was seen in both Stinson's and Wendy's. It may have not been as major in Wendy's as it was in Stinson's, but it was present in both and really creates an ineffective and unfriendly environment to work in. Secondly, negotiations at Stinson's was ineffective because when it came to the same issue of scheduling at Wendy's, they were not able to come up with any compromises between employees and management when it came to scheduling. Lastly, leadership at both Wendy's and Stinson's was ineffective in some ways. First, at Wendy's, it was more ineffective on an organizational level than it was at a store manager level. It was demonstrated when a district manager would make changes and not consider how it affects not only the managers, but also the staff at the locations. At Stinson's, it was more on a whole basis of the organization, managerial, and individual level, because no one felt like they could communicate with each other in fear of repercussion in case they stepped on anyone's toes or questioned anyone's opinions. It was not a really friendly environment as far as leadership, because there was really a lack of leadership, and it was very ineffective when you can't speak to anyone about how you feel. As for recommendations, at Wendy's, I recommend that they have more than one manager issue the awards every month. That way, it's unbiased and two people will make the decision on who gets the awards. Next, at Stinson's, I recommend that they have a book-off book so that employees can book off time ahead of time. That way, when management is making the schedule, they already have a list of people that need time off and when they need it off. It creates less confusion and less conflict. Another recommendation is to have more company events. This can be at both Wendy's, but especially at Stinson's. This way, when it comes to the lack of communication on different levels of power within an organization, they can be more friendly and be introduced to everyone that works at the company. And it really creates a better environment where people can openly communicate with each other on a level playing field. My last recommendation is for staff to provide routine feedback, not only from manager to staff, but also staff to manager. I recommend this both at Wendy's and especially Stinson's again. That way, everyone knows and can be evaluated on things that they do wrong, and that way changes can be corrected for the future. Another option is to base promotions on staff's pay or managers' promotions or bonuses at the end of the year based on staff's feedback and what they think of their managers. And it really helps out as far as giving everyone a reason to do better. What can be learned? There is always a chance for someone with power to abuse their power. It's best to create an environment where power is decided among the people rather than just one person. It's important to empower the staff so that corruption doesn't take over. The second lesson to be learned is conflict. Conflict will always arise, but if both parties keep an open mind with perspective, compromise is possible. Lastly, leadership. Anyone can be a leader, but not everyone can be an effective one. An effective leader initiates structure, has consideration and appreciation of others.